In terms of being able to dissuade Iran, it has failed. Now, it has imposed heavy economic cost on the Iranian people. Of course, the Iranian government is suffering, but the Iranian people and the most vulnerable groups in Iran are suffering the most.
There are people in Washington who talk about it.
Before we go back to the video, let's set the stage. This was a conversation with Javad Zarif, Vice-President for Strategic Affairs of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Watch this.
Let's get started. Joining me now, of course, is a man who needs no introduction, probably the most famous visible face of Iran over the last 3 decades that people have encountered. Deputy Foreign Minister, Ambassador to the UN, now Vice President. Javad Zarif, pleasure to have you on.
Good to be with you.
Let me begin by telling you what it looks like to me right now in terms of Iran's position in the region. I think one could make an argument that Iran has never been in a weaker position. You made a huge bet on Assad in Syria, enormous amount of money, arms, militias. Assad is gone. Hezbollah, a key ally in Lebanon, has been decapitated by my count 3 times over, decimated in terms of its force. You have relations with Hamas. Hamas leadership has been destroyed. Its tunnel infrastructure has been destroyed. The whole idea of the axis of resistance, these militia groups, these sub-state actors that were going to push back against Israel, against the Gulf Arabs, perhaps American interests, it all seems to be much, much weaker than it was before. I'm sure you're going to disagree, so tell me why.
Well, first of all, let me make 2 points, because we don't have much time. First point, in 1982, if you can remember, Sharon invaded Lebanon, pushed all the way into Beirut, because in 78 he pushed all the way until the Litani River in order to prevent the Palestinians from firing into Israel. And then in 82, he went all the way to Beirut in order to basically decimate the Palestinian resistance. If you remember, he sent Arafat to exile, to Tunisia.
Tunis.
So what happened? From 1981 to 1987, Islamic Jihad was born in 81, Hezbollah was born in 82, and Hamas was born between 85 and 87. So I wouldn't suggest anybody to start rejoicing over destroying Hamas, Hezbollah, or the Palestinian resistance, or to cutting Iran's arms, because the resistance will stay as long as the occupation stays, as long as repression stays. Resistance to Israel, to Israeli occupation, to apartheid, to genocide, existed before the Iranian Revolution. It came to being reinforced exactly at a time when Israel and Sharon believed that they had wiped out the resistance. I think right now, as you look at Gaza, Hamas is still there. Netanyahu did not achieve his goal of destroying Hamas. Hamas is still there. Israel had to come to a ceasefire, temporary. I hope it will be permanent, for the sake of 50,000 people who were massacred, genocide by Israel, so that there won't be another 50,000. But resistance is not dead. I can tell you that the wishes for the resistance to go away has been based on a misrepresentation, a framing by Israel, that this is not an Israeli-Palestinian issue, but an Israeli-Iranian issue. That's number one. Number two, go back to 1981, 82, and move all the way to 2023. 2024. Give me a single instance when this resistance operated on Iranian behalf. They always worked for their own cause, even at our expense. They never carried our orders. We didn't know about October 7th. Actually, we were supposed to have a meeting with the Americans on JCPOA renewal on October 9th, which was undermined and destroyed by this operation.
But then it makes the case that this has been a very unwise investment for Iran to be funding all these militias which are not even doing Iran's interests.
Well, let's not talk about funding, because a lot of people are funding a lot of things and they're not successful. But let's focus on the fact that we have supported people's rights. Now, Israeli actions are a matter of jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice, in the case of genocide, a matter of criminal jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court in terms of Netanyahu and the Minister of Defense. So, and they cannot come to Davos. The president can come to Davos because he's a nobody in Israel, to reciprocate what he said yesterday. Otherwise, he would have had to go to The Hague instead of Davos. This is the reality on the ground. People will continue to resist. Now, why am I making this statement? Because if you want to resolve the problem of Palestine, you should not look at Iran. You should look at the Palestinian issue. As long as the Palestinian issue is there, the struggle will be there, the resistance will be there, and there will be support from the international community, including from Arab allies of the United States.
I take your point, but if I may, with respect, you haven't answered my question, which is about Iran's position. You've lost a key ally in Assad, you've lost, or at least you have a much weaker ally in Hezbollah. Your air defenses have been destroyed. We have reports or you tell me if it's not true, we have reports of generals in Iran talking about the fact that they've paid a very heavy price for the support of Assad. Is it not true that you are in a much weaker position?
But let me make, again, a couple of points. We fought Iraq when we didn't have any air defense, when we didn't have any weapons, when the United States was providing Iraq with AWACS, when the French were providing Iraq with Exocet missiles and Mirage fighters, when Germany was providing Iraq with chemical weapons, when Britain was providing Iraq with Chieftain tanks, when Russia, Soviet Union at that time, was providing Iraq with MiGs and Scud missiles, when China at that time was providing Iraq with Silkworm missiles. We didn't have anything. We stood against Iraq for 8 years, and we did not give up an inch of our territory. So, first of all, the story about destroying our air defense is a story, and there is a reason behind it.
You're saying it didn't happen?
No, we suffered, but it didn't mean that we lost our air defense. And secondly, we have fought against a well-equipped army, equipped by everybody, when nobody was giving us any weapons for 8 years, and we didn't lose an inch of our territory. And that's something that didn't happen in Iran for 220 years. For the previous 220 years, we had lost every war in which we engaged. This is the first government in Iran that has not lost any territory in the past 2.5 centuries. So we're not talking about a weak government. But I answered your question by saying that find me a single instance when these groups, which are, I think, erroneously called Iranian proxies, operated on our behalf. If they did not operate on our behalf, what do they do to our strength? Now, you can tell me that we worked on their behalf diplomatically and that gave us strength, but we never tried to cash our investment in the region. You now tell me that this was a foolish investment. I believe that you and I belong to a school of thought in social science which does not believe in only material power. We, both of us, believe in ideational power. The fact that Iran can, in fact, move people in the streets in many parts of the world gives us power, with or without Hezbollah.
But let me ask you about that.
We still possess that power. We can still move people, inspire people, as we did in the beginning of the revolution. Now, it may not be as good as it was, because we have our own failures domestically, and we need to work on them. Now, let me tell you what I wrote in Foreign Affairs, and you've read it. Now, for us, is the time to move forward. We have been looking at our surrounding as a threat because of our history. Now, we have proven time and again that we will not be an easy food to swallow, because we used to be. I mean, the Brits, the Russians took over Iran, imposed on us a famine after the Second World War. Nobody thinks of Iran as such an easy place to carry out their whims. So we can move forward.
So let's talk about
move forward based on opportunity rather than based on threats.
So, but let's talk about that. Let me start by asking. U.S. intelligence says Iran is weeks, sometimes they say days, away from the breakout capacity to build a nuclear weapon. Is that true, and will you?
Well, had we wanted to build a nuclear weapon, we could have done it a long time ago. But a program to build nuclear weapons is not going to be like our program. You build nuclear weapons in hidden laboratories that are not subject to international inspections. By the way, people who are worried about our nuclear program, like the Israelis, they say we are days away from a nuclear weapon. So why didn't they welcome JCPOA? JCPOA, in the worst analysis, would have kept Iran away from nuclear weapons for at least 15 years. So people who are saying that Iran will have, I mean, Netanyahu has been saying from 1994, 96, that Iran will have a nuclear weapon in 6 months. Now we're about what, 30 years later, and we still are a couple of days away from nuclear weapons. This is what we call in our jargon, securitization, not security. Iran is not a security threat. Some people want to frame Iran as a security threat. Iranophobia, Islamophobia are tools to carry out programs like the genocide in Gaza, always saying that we're doing this against Iran. But you're doing it against children in Gaza.
Let me ask you about the Foreign Affairs article you wrote. You talked about how under Trump, there may be an opportunity for a deal with Iran. I was surprised by that because Trump is, after all, the person who pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal, the JCPOA. Why do you think that the guy who pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal and reimposed American sanctions on Iran and said, I want maximum pressure on Iran, why is there an opportunity?
Well, there's always hope that people will choose rationality. But in order to be more serious, let me give you a chronology. John Bolton went to Paris in February of 2017.
At this point, he's Trump's national security advisor?
No. February, he wrote an article in, I think, late 2016, giving a blueprint for Trump to get out of JCPOA. In February of 2017, he went to Paris, spoke to this gathering of MEK. I think his tax return shows that he received $40,000 for it. They tell me that he lied on his tax sheet, so he may have received...
This is a group that advocates the overthrow
removal of the Iranian government, was on the terrorist list of the United States for some time. Now, he said in that speech that we will celebrate next time this year in Tehran. He was appointed National Security Advisor in April. Pompeo was confirmed as Secretary of State on April 26th. He went to Israel on April 28th and asked Netanyahu to put out that show about the documents that they had uncovered from Iran. Trump pulled out of JCPOA on May 8th. You look at this sequence of events. And I have reason from what I heard from leaders of other countries, that they had convinced Trump of two things. One, Iran was crumbling, and a sudden withdrawal from JCPOA would be the last nail on Iran's coffin. Second, that with these documents, forged documents that Netanyahu is showing, there would be an international support for the United States to withdraw from JCPOA. Both extremely wrong assumptions of Trump's advisors, not Trump himself. Now, I hope that this time he kicked Bolton out, he kicked Robin Hook out, he kicked Pompeo out, because Pompeo was seeking an appointment. Hook was there until, what, yesterday? He withdrew the Secret Service support from John Bolton on a bogus charge that Iran was trying to kill him, which has been bogus from the very beginning. So I hope that this time around, a Trump 2 will be more serious, more focused, more realistic, to know that the withdrawal that was imposed on him, and he has said it, that he did it for Israel. And he has said now that he won't do anything for any other country. He said it on his inauguration. After he withdrew from JCPOA, Iran has gained much more nuclear capability based on your breakout calculations. I don't do breakout calculations because we don't want to break out. But based on American breakout calculations, we were a year away from a nuclear weapon when Bolton wrote that whatever executive order to get Trump out, memorandum to get Trump out. And today, even the Americans say we are a few days away. So in terms of being able to dissuade Iran, it has failed. Now, it has imposed heavy economic cost on the Iranian people. Of course, the Iranian government is suffering, but the Iranian people and the most vulnerable groups in Iran are suffering the most.
There are people in Washington who talk about a new deal, a new Iran nuclear deal, but one that would also include a pledge by Iran not to continue supporting proxies or groups
we never had proxies.
All right, not supporting groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, and etc. Would Iran consider such a deal?
You see, the United States was always insisting that we should have a regional deal. Now we have a regional deal. We have good relations with Saudi Arabia. We have good relations with the United Arab Emirates. I have proposed in an article I recently wrote in Economist, after my foreign affairs article, that we should have a new arrangement in this region. I call it Mawadda, Muslim West Asia Dialogue Association, MWADA, which is the acronym will be Mawadda, and Mawadda in Arabic means amity. So, and the title in Economist was amity instead of enmity. Let's do that. So we're there. And you say our arms are cut off. So why do they worry about them? If Iran doesn't have any strength in the region, if Iran's arms...
No, but then a pledge not to help them rebuild would be... would you consider that?
The problem is that's the wrong address. The address for the resistance in the region is in Tel Aviv, is in Israeli occupation, genocide, apartheid, and violation of Palestinian rights. The address is not in Tehran. The United States and Israel for the next 50 years can push Iran. That will not resolve the Palestinian issue. They want to resolve the Palestinian issue. the only solution, and I think everybody who has spoken here in Davos 2025, probably with the exception of the gentleman you interviewed yesterday, have insisted that the only solution is a viable Palestinian state. Unless that solution is reached, there'll be more resistance, there'll be more groups, with or without Iran's help. Iran has always supported struggle of people for their human rights, for their right to self-determination, and will continue to support that. But that's not the cause. There has to be a struggle before you can support it. Your support does not create the struggle. There is a struggle. There is a resistance caused by the fact that there is an occupation, aggression, violation of human rights.
Let me ask you about something going on in Iran with regard to human rights. I was in Saudi Arabia a few times in the last year, and Saudi women came to me and said they were very proud that now in Saudi Arabia, women had far more rights than in Iran. This president, the new president, has come in and said he was going to make it possible for women to wear whatever they wanted. They did not have to wear the scarves. The morality police would be prevented from what I regard as the harassment of women. Doesn't seem to have happened yet.
Well,
will it?
Well, you see, I'm proud to have had a role in the formation of Iranian cabinet, and we have 4 women in our cabinet at the cabinet level.
Can they attend the cabinet meetings with their hair uncovered?
Well, they choose not to, because they...
Is that a choice
they believe in the law of the country. Now, if you go to the streets of Tehran, you see that there are women who are not covering their hair. It's against the law, but the government has decided not to put women under pressure. And this was a promise that President Pezeshkian made, and the promise is being observed. He did not implement the law with the consent of the leadership. I don't mean the leader, the leadership of the country, the head of parliament, the head of the judiciary and others, National Security Council. So we're moving in the right direction. We have, for the first time, our ethnic minorities are governors in Iranian Kurdistan, in Iranian Baluchistan. We have a minority member of the cabinet. So these are things that I'm sure President Pezeshkian is proud of, and as a person who was responsible for the formation of cabinet, I'm very proud. It's not enough, Farid. It's a step in the right direction.
There are hardliners in Iran who don't like you.
So?
In fact, you are currently, I don't understand the complete specifics, but they have taken you to court, or they have filed cases in court to have you dismissed from your current job.
Yeah.
Is this going to succeed? I mean, basically the argument is your children have American citizenship.
My children were born in the U.S.,
so they're both right citizens.
When I was a student.
Will these efforts succeed? And more importantly, doesn't it reveal what the President of Israel said, which is that the hardliners, who are often seen as controlling core security policy, don't trust people like you, that they're going to make policy, and what you say at places like Davos doesn't matter because they're the guys actually running things?
Well, actually they're not, because I'm here. Had they been running the show, I would be, I mean, according to their visions, not even free to walk in the streets, not the streets of Davos, but not even the streets of Tehran. But it shows that Iran is not a uni-voice, single-voice society. We have many voices, many views, and we cannot shut them down. Now, in other places, at one time, they shut down the voices of progress. At another time, they shut down the voices of tradition. We don't. voices of progress, voices of, I don't like these labels, but voices that like more open policies are very active. Voices that are against us are also active. They lose in the elections, they win in the elections. Last election, we lost. This election, we won, but was a very close competition. And first time in my life that I've done anything domestic was during this campaign, and I had to go to town after town, campaigning for President Pezeshkian, then candidate Pezeshkian. And I know for a fact, I've sensed it with all my being that this was a tough race. A real race with a real choice. It would have been much different under Pezeshkian's competitor, under his rival or whatever in the election. If today, instead of President Pezeshkian, you had President Jalili, you might have had a major war going on in the region. So there is plurality in Iran. There are differences of views in Iran. I respect these different views. I don't accept people who are running smear campaigns against me to be shut down, or to be quieted by the government. Because if we do it to them, tomorrow they'll do it to us. And they have more power to do it. So I think it's good that they are taking me to court, not taking me, taking the government to court to try to dismiss me, because they believe my appointment is a violation of the law. That's their interpretation. We have a different interpretation, and if the case goes to the court, if the court decides that it has jurisdiction to hear it, the government will present its argument. If the court decides that I should go, I'll go. It won't be the end of the world. I'll start teaching again. I've done it. This is my third what is it? Coming back from the dead.
Reincarnation.
Reincarnation. I was sent back home after I was Iran's ambassador to the UN. I went home and stayed in the university for 6 years. Then I was sort of reincarnated as foreign minister. And then after my term as foreign minister ended, I went to the university and had 3 wonderful years writing 2 books. And now I'm back. I can go back to university or have a retirement. It's time.
Mr. Vice President, pleasure to have you on.
Good to see you, Farid, again.
Let us know what you think in the comment section. See you in the next episode.